Hi, I'm Carys and
And I'm Gary Younge.
Every week, Gary and I will be talking about the stories in the news that are overreported and the ones that are going completely under the radar and not being talked about enough.
This is Over the Top and Under the Radar. Carys, how you doing?
Fair to middling, I would say. How are you doing?
I'm good, actually. I've come out of birthday season in my house. Three birthdays in February. So that's nearly all in a rearview mirror. Birthday season, you just got to get through it. It's about the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not about there being high or low. It's just a fucking big tunnel.
Maybe this could be your next book, Gary, like something about party planning. Have you thought about that?
What, instead of shoes? For those who don't know, one of my books was about all of the children who got shot dead in one day in America. After Carys had read it, she then said to me, the next book you do should be about shoes. I want something lighter from you. So
I think I think I'm coming across badly in that story. It's a very good book. It's because I believe in you, Gary. I think you could write a great book about shoes.
It's just good to know you're here for me, Carys.
And all of your books have also been great. I'm just saying maybe Gary could become a lifestyle influencer. And like you could do one of those ones where, I don't know if you've seen that genre of book, you'd sort of have pictures of you in your home talking about how you dress a table.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like almost like sort of like domestic goddess vibes. You'd be like, got a small dinner party. Why not try this cocktail? You do actually make a mean cocktail. Here's my guide to birthdays. Like, I'm just saying, talk to your agent, talk to some publishers, see if there's an appetite.
What's his name? Yanis Varoufakis did one of those, I think, in Hello or something. And it was like me with...
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did. It was like me with salad at home with my wife, and on Tuesdays.
Oh, his wife's quite fancy though, isn't she?
Yeah, they're both
the
fancy.
Common People was written about.
Yeah, and it was like, on Tuesdays, I revolutionized the Greek economy. But today, we have salad.
Well, I'm just saying, could be a branch out for you.
Yeah, no,
I'm just trying to think of ways to develop you, Gary. Just keep things fresh, keep new things. People, if you want to have a book about hosting from Gary, just let us know.
Let us know. You can find us all over socials, be it Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, on X at over_under_pod_.
Jem Rachel on Blue Sky says there are some great podcasts offering insight into the events in the White House this week. Recommend at Over Under Pod and at Newsagents. There you go. The hat tip for us and for Emily, Mateless and gang. Big shout out to everyone who joined the Patreon community in the last week. Thank you so much to Rosa, Ivan, Bags, Teuton, Marlon, Lucy, Calvin, and KD. We have 459 Patreon supporters, of which 428 of you are fully fledged paying Patreon members. Thank you so much.
The team and I make this podcast because we believe there's an audience out there of people just like us, people like you who are left-wing and progressive, but also have a sense of humor and a sense of irony, and who are tired of just shouting at the television or shouting at the radio. And we would like to kind of amplify our voice and blend it with yours.
Myself, Gary, and the small Black-owned production company behind the podcast don't all get paid for what we do. Because our values matter to us, we don't just take random adverts, we only take sponsorship and support from organisations whose values align with ours.
So if you enjoy the pod and find value in what we do, please consider donating. The packages start at just £5 plus VAT a month. And if you already donate, please consider upgrading your membership.
If you sign up to support us, you will get, in addition to our podcast episodes, you'll get access to bonus episodes, our newsletter, and the exclusive Over Under WhatsApp community, which is very fun and lively and has lots of like-minded people.
Search Over the Top, Under the Radar on Patreon, and please put your money where your ears are.
So, Gary, today I want to talk to you about Reform UK and Thames Water.
And I want to talk about disability benefits and a Palestinian student who is under attack. So My over the top this week, I want to talk about the government plans to slash disability benefits. The government plans to make £6 billion worth of welfare cuts by making it harder to claim, by freezing some disability benefits, and by cutting those who are on universal credit, who are judged as unfit to work. They're doing this because they say that there are way too many people claiming disability, and they believe that if they do this, that they will encourage them back to work. I think actually if they do this, what it will do is make people poorer. In fact, Age Concern and a group of other organizations have said that if they freeze the personal independence payments, which is the benefit that you get just to help you out if you're disabled, up to 700,000 people might be pushed into poverty by these changes. And what's deeply challenging is that they are doing this in the name of Labour. They are saying, look, actually some backbenchers have said, well, the rationale is in the name. We are the Labour Party. We are for working people. What's his name? Keir Starmer, that's his name. He said, I come from a family that dealt with disability through my mum and my brother over many years, so I understand the concerns that have been raised. But we inherited a system which is broken. That's true. But it was broken because it was insufficiently generous, not because it was insufficiently punitive. He went on to say it's indefensible economically and morally. That would be your plans. The situation we're in now is indefensible because it is too tight, not because it is too generous. And we must and we will reform it. We will have clear principles. We will protect those who need protecting. We will also support those who can work back to work. Labour is the party of work. We are also the party of equality and fairness. There are so many things to say about this, and it should be acknowledged that there are more people out of work at the moment due to ill health than there has been, and we are paying more than we were. And it is my belief that people who can work should, if they can. But that is not entirely what this is about. And I would point listeners to Dr. Francis Ryan, one of my former colleagues at The Guardian, who has written a brilliant article in The Guardian, but also on Twitter or X has talked about, look, this is really about saying, well, Parkinson's is less a kind of a painful medical thing that you have to deal with and more about something that just stops you stacking shelves. So this is about making everybody well for exploitation. The labour movement, yes, it's about labour. It's also about rest. It's about the weekend and sick pay. That was also what the labour unions and trade unions, that's also what they fought for. And there are a number of people who were saying, well, people would put up on social media, their kids, and they would say, look, these are the challenges that I have, and these are the ways in which my kid is going to be affected. And people are saying, well, they're not going to cut it for children. They're saying, yeah, but my child won't also be a child. And for those who are like, well, it's not going to be that person, but that person, I present to you Windrush, because that hostile environment was not supposed to target elderly Caribbean people. That wasn't the aim, but it was the inevitable consequence. And we knew that was going to happen. Large numbers of people are going to be horribly, horribly, disproportionately affected by these cuts. And you have to wonder, this is the Labour Party, which at a certain point I thought of less of an enemy and more as an obstacle to social progress. But at this point, when I look ahead and I see they're freezing the old people, they're cutting the benefits, the 2-child cap, now they're going at the disabled. What this will do is foment the cynicism that we have around our politics, will actually feed the kind of resentment that will actually kind of fuel the energy for reform and so on. And we need an opposition. And I don't think that it would be great if that opposition were in Parliament. It would be great if the left-wing Labour MPs and just a moderate left-wing MPs stood up. But in the absence of that, we need an opposition in the streets. The reason I think the coverage of these disability benefits are over the top is really not about the amount of coverage that they have, but the way that they're covering it. They are covering it at face value as though, look, there is this problem that has to be sorted out somehow. Some papers may agree, some papers may not agree, but this is the problem. And to me, it's both a misidentification of the problem and reveals a real lack of joined up thinking in terms of funding for the NHS, what we want out of work, the kind of society we want to live in, and then, yes, disability benefits and so on.
It's had a lot of coverage, and I agree the coverage it has been pretty one-sided. Similarly to you, I would like a society with full employment where people that are able to work can find work, because I think, as well as putting food on the table, work is fulfilling. So I don't think there are many people advocating for a society where people don't work or wrongfully claim benefits they're entitled to. But I think the problem with all of the discourse around spending on welfare and disability is that there's this right-wing assumption, and let's be clear, it's a right-wing assumption, that everyone claiming benefits is like on the take or some sort of a scammer. If we were living in a more compassionate society, or I would argue a more logical one, we'd say the benefits bill has gone up. Why? So there is some evidence to suggest that there's a mental health crisis that's kicked in since COVID. That's one of the reasons the benefits bill has gone up. But rather than saying, why are so many people, especially so many young people, unable to work because their mental health is so bad, we're like, where's the stick? How can we like make it even harder for these people to claim not that much money? There's a right-wing agenda that demonizes poor people and immigrants and justifies a society where there are immigration controls and it's very hard to claim benefits. We have to be clear that that is a right-wing political project. No progressive political project that is successful can stem from demonizing poor people and immigrants. I don't agree with the policy, but I also think it's silly politics and like stupid politics. And it just plays into tropes that we've seen across the mainstream media for years, like documentaries like Benefit Street, this idea that everyone on benefits is a scammer and that, you know, they're living this great life where they don't have to work. And like, that isn't the truth. Benefits are a pittance. Aside from being mean and cruel, like it's just not good policy. You're not going to deal with a mental health crisis or with a surge in people who've got long COVID by saying you can't have any money. You're going to create other problems that we will still have to deal with. And the other thing I want to say is we are living in a fantasy world where there are all these jobs that people are turning down because they just want to sit on their ass. Like, there aren't that many good jobs in the UK, especially if you're not a graduate. It just isn't engaging with the reality of like the kind of society or economy that we have. And I don't think it will help Keir Starmer in the long run.
I think that there is a problem here. I hate the phrase joined up thinking, but one of the problems is the NHS. Make the NHS more functioning, maybe significant numbers of people can get back to work. I had to wait the best part of a year for an MRI when I had a heart condition. And that strikes me as a bit like, right, we're going to up the defense spending, we're going to cut aid, and we're going to clamp down on refugees. And this is another one of those things where it's like, well, actually, what you're going to want to do is invest significantly in a health service in order to get people back to work.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, the quote from the Keir Starmer speech where he talks about his mother's experience of healthcare problems. He knows better than this, and many people in government know better than this. I think it's also like, you're not an LBC radio host parroting things that people have texted in. People look to government for solutions to problems. People who've got young children in severe mental health crisis, people who themselves are struggling with long-term illness. We on the left shouldn't cede the ground that just because we don't want a punitive state, it means that we want everyone sat around on benefits that they don't deserve. Like, I want us to solve the problems that mean a lot of people are willing to work but unable. And that's a lot tougher, right, than announcing another slash to the benefit bill. My over the top is the Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe beef. So I just want to say police are involved, lawyers are involved, and none of us, other than, you know, Rupert and Nige and a select few, really know what's going on. But I'm going to give you the timeline and then I'm going to tell you why it's annoying me, the way the media are talking about it. So, stage one in the timeline, like we're in sort of like, this is like Wagatha Christie vibes. This is the only way we can engage with it because it's nonsense. So stage one, Rupert Lowe is quoted in the Daily Mail talking trash about Nigel Farage, saying he thinks he's the Messiah. Make your own Life of Brian joke. Stage two, bullying allegations surfaced. Two people have complained that work in Rupert Lowe's office, that information is key, that there's bullying. Stage 3, Rupert Lowe says there's a witch hunt against him. Stage 4, Lee Anderson, Google him if you don't know who he is. I can't get into it on this one. Another Reform MP, and I believe the Chief Whip, removes the whip from Rupert Lowe. You are no longer a Reform MP. Stage 5, Rupert Lowe claims that he has been the victim of a political assassination and, according to Sky News, is consulting libel lawyers. It then surfaces, stay with me, Gary, that the bullying allegations related to Rupert Lowe's office, but Rupert Lowe is not the alleged bully. Someone was bullying some people in Rupert Lowe's office, but it wasn't Rupert Lowe. So was that malicious leaking? I'm going to throw the mainstream media, and indeed all of us, a bone, in that conflict is juicy. We all love a bit of drama. The amount of coverage that this reform saga is getting is a little bit overblown, and a little bit the Westminster lobby getting a bit like gassed and hyped up on their own sort of chat. Nigel Farage and his various political parties have a pretty solid track record of less than robust candidate selection, which results in a lot of candidates that generate scandals. We can think most recently of the 3 that had to be dropped over the various offensive comments they'd made, some of which were racist. So, like, number 1, Reform candidates, and prior to this, Brexit Party and UKIP candidates, are cut from a slightly different cloth, and they often while out and do bananas things. Number 2, most people who vote Reform, I do not believe, hold Nigel Farage to the same political standard that they might other mainstream political parties. I think if you vote Reform, you vote just Reform because you want to shake shit up, or you want things done on immigration. So you're not actually voting being like, Nigel Farage is this like bastion of democracy and he really manages his party well. So I think we're overblowing the extent to which Reform voters, current or future, will care. And then, yeah, third, I think there are a lot of interesting things about Reform and the rise of Reform. I don't think Nigel Farage falling out with one of his MPs is one of them. And I think that the time spent on this interpersonal drama that no one will remember, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, in 6 to 12 months is time that could be spent scrutinising the party funding or the fact it's still a company, but they claim they're still a membership organisation. So, yeah, as ever, I think too much coverage of Farage and just too much coverage of the wrong thing. Like, I'm over it. Although, as you can hear, I have been quite deep in it at points.
I was going to say, you're kind of over it in the same way that I'm over EastEnders. I wonder whether the problem isn't that they are covering this so much as that they are not covering that. Because there is something here about like the dysfunctionality. They've had these fights in the past. People have punched each other out. They're a clown car where everybody in the car is armed and dangerous. But there is something about, particularly when they are polling as well as they are, we got this by-election coming up, of giving a sense of what a shambles they are. There is some value to that. It's that they're not doing the other stuff. So to me, in the absence of the other stuff, then all we've got is this kind of interpersonal rivalry.
Yeah, I think there's something more there, because I think there's a desire to like give it status it doesn't have. One of like our, political counterparts was like, isn't this sinister that someone's spoken out against the leader of the political party and now he's being sort of forced out? And it's like, literally happens in the Labour Party, happens in all the parties. So yeah, it's the hyperbole for me. Like, let's not pretend this isn't just politics as usual.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That like, yes, they are sinister, but this isn't the thing that makes them sinister. This is almost the thing that makes them normal. The other stuff is the stuff that makes them sinister. I mean, I do enjoy it, though. I've got to tell you.
Yeah, I think we've got to pretend it's like Real Housewives of Atlanta or something.
Real House Husbands of Great Yarmouth.
Exactly. Real House Husbands of Great Yarmouth. Let's not pretend there's some bigger political discourse. Let's just get our kicks and get the popcorn out and like be on X being like, what did he say? I think it is also a bit of an indicator of how much more attention the right gets in this country from the media. I doubt that the Green Party are like subtweeting each other and bickering, to their credit, but there's just more appetite for stories about reform. And that does actually fuel this machine where they get so much free media and so much attention. And then so many people say they're going to vote for them. And I do think, on like a bit of a serious note, that the media's like somewhat responsible for that. Why is Rupert Lowe getting all this bloody airtime? Like, why do I know everything about him? As wonderful as Great Yarmouth is, like, he has no government position.
My under is one that when I proposed it, I think was under. But each day it becomes more and more reported. If you're in America, then you probably know about it. But if you're not, then there's a chance that you don't. And even if you do, it bears talking about, which relates to Mahmoud Khalil. So Mahmoud Khalil is a Syrian-born Palestinian who did a master's at Columbia University. And while he was there, was one of the organizers of the ceasefire campaign and also the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. He was a negotiator and a spokesman for the Columbia University Apartheid Divest, which was a pro-Palestinian group. On Saturday, the US Immigration Services went to his house. They were let in, because she didn't know, by his partner, who is 8 months pregnant, and he was taken away for his political activities. They said that they were coming to revoke his visa, and his partner, who's an American citizen, said he hasn't got a visa, he's got a green card. That makes him a lawful permanent resident. It also gives him protections under the Constitution that an immigrant might have. And they had to call, this is how much they were doing it on the fly, they had to call their bosses and be like, that visa that we were supposed to revoke, he hasn't got one. He's got a green card. And then they had to wait and be told, right, revoke that as well. He's been taken into custody and being threatened with deportation. Not long before, he had emailed the head at Columbia University and said, I haven't been able to sleep, fearing that ICE, that's the immigration and customs outfit for the American state, or a dangerous individual might come to my home. I urge you to intervene and provide the necessary protections to prevent further harm. Clearly, they didn't do that. And he is being held under a spurious rule about people who could do harm to American foreign policy. They're claiming that he is a Hamas supporter. There is no evidence of any connections between him and Hamas. They're claiming he's anti-Semitic. There is no evidence, as far as I'm aware, that he has been anti-Semitic, unless you suggest that calling for boycott and divestment of Israel is anti-Semitic, but I don't believe that to be true. This is clearly an infringement of his First Amendment rights in America. It is intriguing, given J.D. Vance came to Munich to talk about the problems of freedom of speech. Here we have someone exercising their First Amendment rights, no connection to any kind of violence at all. There they are in jail and threatened with deportation. Clearly, this is an effort to intimidate, to décourager les autres, as they would say, to discourage people from making any kind of stand, any foreigner making any kind of stand, any legal citizen making any kind of stand. So we're not talking about illegal immigration anymore. We're not talking about really, he's got a green card, so we're barely talking about immigrants anymore. We're just talking about shutting down debate and conversation and making it clear to everybody that if you step out of line and we decide where the line is and we decide what it is, we will come for you. We need people at this point to step up. There were people in a journalism school saying, look, if you're a foreign student, I want to stay away from writing about Gaza or anything else because we can't protect you. Which, on the one hand, I think is probably clear pastoral advice, but also like we need, you know, that guy in Tiananmen Square who stood in front of the tank. We need some people who are going to stand in front of tanks. We need some people to step up and stand up and get in the way to actually leverage their whatever privileges they have as citizens or whatever to actually stop this. And we need that kind of globally. We need companies who have DEI to say, no, we're going to do this. Actually, we're going to carry on doing this, even if you don't like it. We need governments to say, well, actually, the fact that America doesn't want it, well, and to take the hit, because there will be a hit. The other thing that I think is really important to emphasize, here's this guy writing to the head of his college saying, I'm worried about a dangerous individual might come to my home. This is not an abstract fear. This is not a technical fear. When we talk about who feels safe, we have to remember who are the people most likely to be attacked. Everybody deserves safety. It's not a competition. It really isn't. But somehow these people are left out of the equation.
It's an awful story, which, I feel bad for not having seen. Yeah, I think it sort of ties in with some stuff we've spoken about before. Where are the free speech advocates like Elon Musk now? And I think that it really just shows pretty plainly that free speech is apparently a privilege rather than a right, and free speech only if we like what you're saying. And I think that conditionality that a lot of us feel as non-white people of, well, if you don't stick to the script or seem grateful and happy to be here, then you shouldn't be here. You don't have a right. And that is what people are talking about when we talk about privilege and inequality. This is a material difference that your immigration status makes, not just feeling precarious, but being precarious. And I think it makes me think of some of the more impressive activist groups over here and in the US that really understand that. Yeah, I'm thinking about Sisters Uncut, who were an anti-austerity campaign group and did lots of direct action. And talking to one of their founders who said the first direct action they did, there were lots of white women and black women and brown women. And they said it was just so obvious how quickly the police just went for everyone that wasn't white. And they said from then on, we had to completely change how we organized, and white women had to be the ones that were most likely to be arrested, but black women, we still wanted to be in the pictures and the visible face of the group. So I think other than the hollow laugh at the idea that America is the home of free speech, which even corporations enjoy the right to, but also, what does this mean for our organizing, given this very real reminder of how much more vulnerable people are? Green card holder, that's just pretty wild. My under the radar is quite different. Again, we're back in the UK. We might end up talking about poo. I just want to be real with you.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, probably since the days of the battle bus. My under the radar is a company called PIMCO. Have you heard of PIMCO?
I haven't heard of PIMCO.
So PIMCO is an American bond fund, so we're back over the pond, that the Financial Times found this week, a couple of days ago, had just made a 17% profit on one of its loans. How do you think PIMCO made a 17% profit on a loan?
I'm going to go with sort of Tony Soprano style extortion.
PIMCO is one of the companies that has loaned money to Thames Water. Now, stay with me. We will get to poo. We're going to start off with money. Thames Water, who its name suggests it's the water provider for London, it actually provides water to a quarter of the population in England and Wales. So not just Londoners are served by Thames Water. I'm sure many people listening pay Thames Water money. So Thames Water is one of the raft of companies that was created when our water system was privatised in 1989. Great idea by Margaret Thatcher. When privatisation happened in 1989, Thames Water had £0 of debt. Remember that number, 0, easy to remember. Fast forward, Thames Water now has £19 billion worth of debt. Yes, that's right. The company is so in debt that it needed an emergency loan, which PIMCO and a consortium of other companies have provided at an interest rate of 9.75%. A judge has okayed it. There's a group of campaigners and a Lib Dem MP trying to make sure this loan, which is like essentially a payday loan because it's such terrible terms, doesn't go through. But yeah, the judge who said, this loan can go ahead, did say that consumers would be horrified by the terms and conditions and the sweetener. So just so you're clear, because it's one of these stories that doesn't get a lot of coverage. And then when it does, I don't think journalists walk us through the detail. This company, in its 30-something year history, has racked up £19 billion worth of debt. We know that £7.2 billion of that debt was just dividends paid to shareholders over years. So it had no debt when it started, £19 billion of debt, £7 billion of that was just money to shareholders. I know what you're thinking, Gary. Maybe they use some of that money to invest in the infrastructure, like make sure that we're getting nice, clean water. Oh, no. Thames Water has chronically underinvested in infrastructure to the point that 181 of its 351 wastewater plants have enough capacity to treat incoming material. That's right. About a third of Thames Water facilities can make sure you don't have shit in your water, but the rest of them aren't up to code. So it spent all of this money. It didn't invest. Actually, one of the things it needs the loan for is to deal with the investment because it was sweating its assets for the first 30 odd years, and now all of the assets are in decay. Renationalization of water companies is popular. It is arguably cheaper than having a bunch of American companies loan Thames Water money at a shockingly high interest rate. But Steve Reed, who is our Environment Secretary, and Ofwat decided to go ahead with the deal. If that wasn't enough, Thames Water have also applied to be allowed to increase your water bill, Gary, because Thames Water are your water company. You live in London. They would like to be able to increase prices by 59% over the next 5 years. Now, Ofwat, don't worry, the regulator have said, cap it at 35. But in addition to a crazy loan with really high interest that they need because they've just been harvesting money from the company, they are going to need money from you to deal with the fact there's shit in your water. There's a consortium of people saying we should use the special administrative regime that was created when we privatized water, effectively take it into public ownership and sort it out. Steve Reed said no, let PIMCO make the loan. And that is why PIMCO have posted 17% of profit on that loan before it's even gone through, because the markets are this happy at the juicy deal that they've got. I threw a lot of numbers at you, Gary. That is my under the radar for this week.
When I did my A-level economics, so this is a long time ago, my A-level economic textbook says, what are things you can't privatize? And then they go through this list. They've all been privatized since. And it's not that everything I was taught in my A-level economics was either true or right, but these were orthodoxies at one stage. And here we are. Can anybody seriously point at me and tell me that this is working? It's obviously not working. I feel that in this regard, we need a bit of Trumpiness here. Labour could come in and say, right, we're going to do this and this and this. We're going to just do it.
Also, it's not even low-hanging fruit. You could probably throw half these people in jail and you get a boost in public opinion. In the same week that we're hearing about how all these disabled people really need to be getting less money in benefits, we have to stomach a £3 billion loan for Thames Water to restructure, that they'll still need more money from you.
But this is where, honestly, I feel like we need an opposition in the streets. That the opposition that there is in Parliament to all of this stuff, you're not going to get it from the Tories. So then you're down to whatever the SNP, Plaid and the Greens and the Independents can do. It's not going to happen in Parliament. But the outcome of all of this, there are some people on the left who think, see how they think that they're gotcha, see how these people are failing. They think that somehow it boosts them, but I don't think it does. I think it boosts the right.
I think it's not even that, there is an opposition to this, a consortium of NGOs, one of whom is We Own It, who do a lot of campaigning around the privatized industries. But let's be clear, this is not a radical socialist agenda. Even Margaret Thatcher built in special administration as part of the privatization. If these companies mess up, we can bring them back into public ownership temporarily to sort them out. And the person in the courts challenging this is a Lib Dem MP. I don't think it's much to ask of a Labour government with a stonking majority that they hold these people to account. And by these people, I do not mean people on personal independence payments. I mean the absolute scammers at Thames Water. So I think it's not even that radical a thing. It feels like an open goal. Everyone hates the water companies, bro. All of them. As I say, you could probably round them up and throw them in prison and you get a bump in the polls. I'm not suggesting you do that. We should not suspend habeas corpus. But it's not a hard sell. It's not a hard sell because they're taking the piss and they're putting poo in the water, or at least allowing it to remain in water.
I've got to say, I do like the idea of them actually literally putting poo in the water. not just it being there, but I think just collecting all these turds and just chucking them in the water out of spite.
Yeah, sorry. In the interest of not getting sued, Thames Water aren't putting poo in the water. They do not have the capacity to treat the water that has poo in it. And that is an important distinction, Gary. I'm glad that you made it. They're not maliciously pooing in your water. They just haven't got their shit together enough to make sure the water's clean, the water we pay them for. They're not quite across that yet. And they just need a little more time, a little more money, another little loan. They are the scammers. I think it makes me feel crazy to see the headlines about disabled people and have these people being like, we're just going to need all this money. Obviously your bills will go up for at least the next 5 years and we're going to restructure. And then we really need to invest in the infrastructure because we haven't done that for 34 years. So it's in quite a bad state. And you're like, really? You did this, bro. You did this and I have to pay for it? Yeah, I'm furious. Thank you for listening to Over the Top and Under the Radar.
Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support the show, find us by searching Over the Top, Under the Radar on Patreon.
You can sign up for our newsletter at overunderpod.com and you can connect with us on social media. We are at over_under_pod_.
See you next week.